Of course, Roger also, but this was in your honor today. So this is my song, is what she's doing.
Yeah. This is my song is the beautiful patriotic thing is actually Finlandia. So from the Finnish people who are very nonviolent folks, it's absolutely beautiful. Let's just try and see if we can find the notes. This is my song, oh God of all the nation, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my home, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's sky are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, now God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine. Is my prayer, oh Lord, of all earth's kingdoms, thy kingdom come on earth, thy will be done. Let Christ be lifted up till all men will serve Him, and hearts united learn to live as one. My prayer, thou God of all the nations, let thy will be done. Thy will be done.
You're up, kid.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I really heard your song. Those lines about send me reminded me that just in the days before I started my ministry a few years back, I had a very wonderful spiritual director and really mentor named Henry. And I had gone to France to spend time with him. And in his tutoring me, he said, "So you're going to go do congregational work. Who sends you?" And I don't know. I was sort of stumped. And I said, "I guess Jesus sends me." He said, No, I mean a kind of local authority, something that gives your voice authority. He said, "I go to Holland once a year and I meet with my bishop and we have lunch and a glass of wine." And he says, "Henry, I send you to the United States to teach and to write, and that's it. He sends me. Who sends you?" So that turned out to be, and I think is an important question for all of us, who sends us? I decided that I was sent by whatever congregation I was serving, whatever beloved community I was a part of. Wherever I went, they were the ones who sent me. They may not have been aware of it, and I think that holds true for all of us. You were sent from this community. You have that authority and that power to be compassionate and be present to others. So, thank you. Yeah, who sends you? I'm very grateful for the depth of the peace message in this church and all Unity churches. And it was a lovely meditation this morning that brought that peace to me. And to end each service with the peace statement, peace and not war, and peace in our lifetime. And I think that we need to really believe that that is possible. I grew up in a family of newspaper journalists, publishers, and they had deadlines. And deadlines help. And so I take those words, peace in our lifetime, very seriously. And I'm part of a long-term experiment, which has taught me mainly, called Peace Village, where we teach nonviolence to children, how to solve conflicts without resorting to violence, even violent words or violent emotions. But most of my work now is with a part of Peace Village called Fields of Peace, which this church is a part of. Fields of Peace asks, it's interfaith, we ask mosques and synagogues and churches and so on, each of them to emphasize the peace message according to their own tradition. And I've been involved just this last few weeks thinking about the wars, as you think about them, the news, and wondering, how do we get past, and I fall into this all the time, how do we get past these words that immediately separate us? With friends, with family, often those close to me, but not my wife. We fall into words like hippie and hawk, or idealist and realist. How can we get past those immediate divisions and find a deep place that's the new beginning place for each of us? So this morning is really a kind of experiment. I'm sharing with you some beginning thoughts about how we might go about that. And those thoughts have been inspired by words I've loved for a long time, but have just recently seen in a new way, and they come from the Hebrew prophet Isaiah. He lived about 700 years before Jesus and may be the most poetic of the prophets. And his words, just a handful of words, may be words you recognized. He said, "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid." I don't think he was talking there about the animal kingdom. I think he was talking about the wolf in me and the lamb in me, learning how to come together, those divisions. So the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And they shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord. But the line for me is that middle one, and a little child shall lead them. Such an unlikely thing. When my wife Kathy and I moved to Lincoln City exactly 25 years ago, we decided to be involved in the foster care program with children. We had been foster parents in Arizona where we came from, and we wanted to continue that. Maybe some of you have been involved in that, either as foster children or taking in children, and sometimes it's not even official. They end up in our homes. And with each child who came, some stayed 3 months and some stayed 2 days and some stayed 9 months. But with each one, they really took our hearts, and when each one had to leave, they really broke our hearts. That's the hard part of being a foster parent, and I think ends a lot of foster parents to decide they've had enough. It's too hard when the children leave. Well, one morning, an infant boy, 16 days old, and it turns out 6 weeks premature, was delivered to our home. And he had on a little skull cap to keep his head warm. He had the kind of half-closed eyes of a little kitten, and I could just hold him in one hand. Within minutes, and this is not exaggeration, within minutes, Kathy and I looked at one another, and we knew that this was the one who would come to us and become ours, and that turned out to be true. Now, in the weeks that followed, as I fed and changed and held this little infant, I suddenly realized I suddenly had tremendous lessons about love, and I'd been preaching about love for years. Now I thought, why would they let anybody preach who hasn't held their own infant or had responsibility for an infant? Because I was learning about vulnerability, this tenderness that takes over. And at night when I tucked him in, I found myself singing, which is a thing that I best do alone, and the little one was not able to object. But I wasn't singing a lullaby. The song that came to me comes out of the story of Sweeney Todd, which is a movie and a play some of you may know. And those words go, "Nobody's going to harm you, not while I'm around. No one's going to hurt you, no one's going to dare. Others can desert you, not to worry. Whistle, I'll be there. Nothing's going to harm you, not while I'm around." Well, if you're a parent or grandparent or godparent or a good neighbor or a nurse or a teacher who's really taken in a child as your own, I think you know about that song. When a child comes that close into our life, the child becomes the center. And the wishes we have for the well-being of the child become everything. And in that song, I think there's a built-in catch in the throat because we cannot always be around. That's the nature of raising a child. Now, on the day of his adoption, we named him Gabriel because he was an angel to us. And I think of him as the one who gave birth to us. He gave birth to the love waiting in us. And he made of us a family. We were a couple. He made of us a family. 100 years ago in World War I, the ratio of deaths, combatant deaths to civilian deaths, was 9, so that's 5 and 4, and 1. 9 combatant deaths to every 1 civilian death. Just 20 years later, in World War II, the ratio changed dramatically. For every combatant death, there was a civilian death. A 1-to-1 ratio. That's a dramatic change. And this was due really to modern weaponry, primarily bombs and aircraft that could go long distances and deliver the bombs. So whole cities started to be bombed. What comes to mind, London and Hamburg and Berlin and Tokyo and Hiroshima. Whole cities were bombed. In Dresden, numbers are hard to be accurate, but maybe 135,000 people killed in 1 or 2 days of bombing. Today, following the Vietnam War, Afghanistan, and Iraq, the ratio has now changed. It is now 1 combatant death to every 9 civilian deaths. I don't know why that figure isn't publicized and known. And most of the civilian deaths, of course, are women and children. So in the 100 years, the nature of war has changed dramatically. The ratio of combatants to civilian deaths has turned upside down. 9-to-1 has become 1-to-9. So today's wars, far more children are killed than combatants. And I think it's accurate to say war has become the killing of children. Now, when I was 17, you wouldn't know it by looking at me, I joined the Marine Corps. I was a skinny kid who wanted muscles and was looking for a rite of passage, some manhood. And I pictured myself coming home wearing those Marine dress blues, which are very attractive, or were attractive to me then. Now, I had grown up in a congregational church. My parents and grandparents were the pillars. We'd get up early every Sunday morning and we'd get dressed up. We'd go early for Sunday school. Then at worship, we'd sing the hymns. We'd pray. We'd take in the sermon. And in those 17 years, and that's a very progressive church, the congregational tradition, in those 17 years, I never once heard an anti-war sermon. Nor do I ever remember anyone saying the word nonviolence. Now, when I told my parents that I had joined the Marines, there was consternation. They were horrified. Everyone they had ever known who had joined the Marines was killed. And they said, "We don't want you killed." They never mentioned that I might kill someone else. And when I came home from boot camp, the first Sunday I went to church in my dress blues, and the very first hymn in my honor was "Onward, Christian Soldiers." You probably remember some of those words. "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before." Now, I knew every person in that congregation. I love them, and especially my wonderful parents. They were all followers of Jesus. So how is it that they didn't get it, that we didn't get it? That the very center of all of Jesus' teaching, the center is the Sermon on the Mount, and at the very center, the focus of the Sermon on the Mount, are Jesus' truly revolutionary words, love your enemy. I take that literally. As a Buddhist friend said to me, "Charles, everybody in the world knows that Jesus is the prophet of nonviolence. Everybody except Christians." I've heard it said that, and I believe, that war is really a failure of imagination, a lack of imagination. So imagine a 5-year-old girl in a party dress, standing in front of you. It's early morning, barely light, and the two of you are alone on an airport runway. You don't know her, she doesn't know you, but she's smiling. Her skin has the glow of copper and she's utterly beautiful. In your pocket is a cigarette lighter. You've been ordered to set her dress on fire, to set her on fire. You've been given the reason for this, but the reason's a little hard to hold on to. You kneel and you look up. The girl is curious and still smiling. You take out the lighter. She has no idea. You're grateful that you don't know her name. But you can't do it. Of course you can't. So you stand and ask her name, and you put out your hand, and she takes it. Today, over mud villages in Pakistan and Yemen and Somalia and other places, U.S. drones hover. They're too high to see, but the villagers can hear them, the threat of them night and day. Each drone is armed with something called a Hellfire missile, our most modern weapon of war. And thousands of miles away from Yemen or Somalia, in the Nevada desert, there are men and women in a room at Creech Air Force Base, and they wear pilot suits, and they are watching big screens, and they're holding little controllers, the kind of controllers that you see with computer games. And the screens are relay by drone camera in real time houses and streets and alleys and highways. And the pilots are watching for suspected terrorists. They have mug shots and they're looking for a match. But it's very difficult to tell sometimes because there are so many men with beards and long robes. But when they see a match, they push the red controller button, and then thousands of miles away, a Hellfire missile is sent into a house or a car or a restaurant or a wedding gathering or a funeral gathering. At the end of a 12-hour shift, the pilots drive home to their families to play with their children or to tuck them in at night. And many of the pilots report, that they have flashbacks, nightmares, and they suffer depression. Evidently, distance helps, but not enough. Jesus came into this world as a child. He needed food and shelter, caring hands, so that he could survive. And he came to give birth to the love waiting in us and to make of all of us a family. And to me, that Christ child is not only the light that shines through every child, but is every child. The one who has come, that we've been waiting for, and the one who's going to save us. Each child is that to me. We know that our world is darkened by war and continuous war, perpetual war. And our own nation is a great maker of war, and we are the gun store for the world. We make and we sell the weapons. We've been called an empire, and I go back to the biblical descriptions of the Pharaoh and King Herod, who sent out soldiers in order to kill children. So the question is, what can we as people of faith do? Well, the deepest of all human connections, I believe, is the love of parent for child, adult for child. Nothing else compares. When they're babies, we kiss their toes, we make faces in order to make them laugh. When they're older, we worry if they're 10 minutes late coming home from school. And if they're 2 hours late, nothing in the world counts but their safe return. We'd gladly tear off our arms, die for them, for a safe return. To our son Gabriel, I sang, "Nothing's going to harm you, not while I'm around." It's a beautiful song, sung with a catch in the throat, but it takes me only so far. It stops short of the truth, and the truth is that Gabriel is not safe until the neighbor's child is safe and the enemy's child is safe. What can we as a people of faith do? I believe we can sing a wider and a much deeper song, one which begins with the words, "I will not be a part of the killing of any child." Whatever our nation or culture or religion, we are the same in the love that we have for our children. Exactly the same. And this is the ground we inhabit together, where our experience and our empathy are completely one. We don't have to imagine. We know what the people in Yemen and Somalia feel about their children, the same thing that we feel. I will not be a part of the killing of any child, no matter how lofty the reason. We're always given reasons. We can sing this song together with our neighbors and with our enemies. And it needs to be sung out loud, and somebody needs to go first. I will not be a part of the killing of any child, no matter how lofty the reason, not my neighbor's child, not my enemy's child. Now, to sing this song is really to sing our survival. To sing it, you and I needn't take a vow or become overnight pacifists. You only need to let the words take you where they will. I will not be a part of the killing of any child, no matter how lofty the reason. Not my neighbor's child, not my enemy's child, not by bomb, not by bullet, not by looking the other way. To sing these words, I believe, is to be changed. And the more we repeat them, the more they change us, and the world begins to change. So, if you are ready, and only when you are ready, repeat the words after me. I will not be a part of the killing of any child. Can you say that? I will not be a part of the killing of any child, no matter how lofty the reason. Not my neighbor's child, not my enemy's child. Not by bomb, not by bullet, not by looking the other way. I will be the power that is peace. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It was dark, deep, and lonely, with rain pouring down. I was miles from nowhere, my world upside down. When I spotted the neon, it was not far away, so I pulled right on over into the Holy Cafe. The waitress wore smiles, she was all dressed in white. She looked like an angel, there was warmth in her eyes. I looked at the menu, I could not believe. I turned to that angel, I said, if you please, I'll take the cup of compassion that's special on friends. 2 or 3 hugs and a side of amens. I'll take the glass of abundance, a bowl pinch, just in case I'm dreaming. My spirit grew lighter with each passing taste, and hope filled my heart as it softened the ache. Though the rain just kept falling, I felt warm and dry, thinking about my border divine. I took the cup of compassion, that special on friends, and 2 or 3 hugs, a side of amens. I took the glass of abundance, a plate full of grace, a bowl of sweet love, and a pinch just in case I was dreaming. But I wasn't dreaming. If you're ever in the darkness, on the road in the rain, look for the neon and the angel and the holy cafe. God is feeding us now. The holy cafe, make your order right now. The holy cafe, divine orders accepted.